Hi all, we're back with Raisin the Sun for week 7. Where we left off last time, George just showed up, so we got to see Beneatha's other suitor. I might actually read back a little bit so that you can really hear the conversation. I'm going to start on page 93 instead of just on 94. Okay. Ruth, you get to New York a lot? And she's asking George this. George, offhand, a few times a year. Ruth, oh, that's nice. I've never been to New York. Walter Enders, we feel he has relieved himself, but the edge of unreality is still with him. So he still seems pretty drunk. Walter, New York ain't got nothing, Chicago ain't. Just a bunch of hustling people all squeezing up together between Eastern. He turns his face into a screw of displeasure, so he just looks disgusted. George, oh, you've been? Walter, plenty of times. Ruth, shocked at the lie. Walter Lee Younger. Walter, staring her down. Plenty. Pause. What we got to drink in this house? Why don't you offer this man some refreshment? To George, they don't know how to entertain people in this house, man. George, thank you. I don't really care for anything. Walter, feeling his head, sobriety coming. Where's Mama? Ruth, she ain't come back yet. And so Walter is beginning to sober up. He's not so drunk as he was. Walter, looking Murchison over from head to toe, scrutinizing his carefully casual tweed sports jacket over cashmere V-neck sweater, over soft eyelet shirt and tie and soft slacks, finished off with white buckskin shoes. So basically that's fancy. Like, cashmere is really expensive. You can't get that cheap unless you go to a thrift store. And yeah, tweed sports jacket, that's also pretty fancy. V-neck sweater, that seems like more of a latest fashion kind of thing. Yeah, buckskin shoes. That sounds like it's an animal skin. So yeah, he's wearing really fancy, ritzy clothes. Why all you college boys wear them faggoty looking white shoes? Okay, and I want to say something about that too. So the footnote says it's girlish looking shoes. The thing is though, the word faggot that's a slur for gay people. So he's actually saying like, you look like a gay guy and being really offensive about it. Don't use that word. Like if you're gay, you can use that word. It's kind of like the N-word. Like black people can use the N-word because that's a word that's been used against them. But white people can't use it. And it's the same with the word faggot. Gay people can use it, but straight people should not. Okay. Ruth. Walter Lee. George Murchison ignores the remark. I think that's a good move on George's part. Walter to Ruth. Well, they look crazy as hell. White shoes. Cold as it is. Ruth. Crushed. So she's embarrassed. You have to excuse him. Walter. No, he don't. Excuse me for what? What you always excusing me for? I'll excuse myself when I needs to be excused. A pause. They look as funny as them black knee socks Beneatha wears out of here all the time. Ruth. It's the college style, Walter. Walter. Style? Hell. She looks like she got burnt legs or something. Ruth. Oh, Walter. Walter. An irritable mimic. Oh, Walter. Oh, Walter. To Murchison. How's your old man making out? So how's your dad doing? I understand you all going to buy that big hotel on the drive. He finds a beer in the refrigerator, wanders over to Murchison, sipping and wiping his lips with the back of his hand and straddling a chair backwards to talk to the other man. Shrewd move. Your old man is all right, man. Tapping his head and half winking for emphasis. So, tap. That's that's it. I mean, he knows how to operate. I mean, he thinks big, you know what I mean? I mean, for a home, you know. But I think he's kind of running out of ideas now. I'd like to talk to him. Listen, man, I got some plans that could turn this city upside down. I mean, think like he does, big. Invest big, gamble big, hell, lose big if you have to. You know what I mean. It's hard to find a man on this whole South Side who understands my kind of thinking. You dig? He scrutinizes Murchison again, drinks his beer, squints his eyes, and leans in close, confidential, man to man. Me and you ought to sit down and talk sometimes, man. Man, I got me some ideas. So Walter's basically saying, I've got ideas that are going to impress everybody. Do you understand me? I've got ideas that'll impress everyone. And George is like, okay. And then George, with boredom. Yeah, sometimes we'll have to do that, Walter. Walter, understanding the difference and offended. Yeah, well, when you get the time, man, I know you busy little boy. Ruth. Walter, please. Walter, bitterly hurt. I know I ain't nothing in this world as busy as you colored college boys with your fraternity pins and white shoes. Ruth, covering her face in humiliation. Oh, Walter Lee. Walter, I see you all the time, with the books tucked under your arms, going to your British a mimic. Classes. And for what? What the hell you learning over there? Filling up your heads, counting off on his fingers, with sociology and the psychology, but they teaching you how to be a man, how to take over and run the world? They teaching you how to run a rubber plantation or a steel mill? Nah, just to talk proper and read books and wear them faggoty-looking white shoes. George, looking at him with distaste, a little above it all. You're all whacked up with bitterness, man. Yeah, you're just angry with everyone because you hate your job and you're not rich, is what George is saying to Walter. Walter, intently, almost quietly, between the teeth glaring at the boy. And you? Ain't you bitter, man? Ain't you just about had it yet? Don't you see no stars gleaming that you can't reach out and grab? You happy? You contented son of a bitch? You happy? You got it made? Bitter? Man, I'm a volcano. Bitter? Here I am, a giant surrounded by ants. Ants who can't even understand what it is the giant is talking about. Ruth, passionately and suddenly. Oh, Walter, ain't you with nobody? So, basically she's saying, Walter, you don't like anyone. Walter, violently, no, 'cause ain't nobody with me, not even my own mother. Ruth, Walter, that's a terrible thing to say. Beneatha enters, dressed for the evening in a cocktail dress and earrings, hair natural. So Beneatha comes in and she's wearing a cocktail dress. So that's like a fancy dress. It's maybe knee length, just about. Yeah, it's still it's a fancy dress. And then earrings, and her hair's natural, so it's curly. It's not straightened. George, well, hey, crosses to Beneatha, thoughtful, with emphasis, since this is a reversal. You look great. And he's saying that she looks great because she looks different than she did before in the last scene when she was dressed in all the Nigerian clothes that Asaga had given her. Walter, seeing his sister's hair for the first time. What's the matter with your head? So Walter's commenting on how her hair is really curly instead of straightened like she normally has it. Beneatha, tired of the jokes now. I cut it off, brother. Walter, coming close to inspect it and walking around her. Well, I'll be damned, so that's what they mean by the African bush. So he's saying that's a wild haircut. Beneatha, ha ha, let's go, George. George, looking at her, you know something? I like it. It's sharp. I mean, it really is. Helps her into her wrap. So her jacket. Ruth. Yes, I think so too. She goes to the mirror and starts to clutch at her hair. Walter. Oh no, you leave yours alone, baby. You might turn out to have a pin-shaped head or something. Beneatha. See you all later. Ruth. Have a nice time. George. Thanks. Good night. Half out the door, he reopens it. To Walter. Good night, Prometheus. Beneatha and George exit. And Prometheus is a Greek god who rebelled against Zeus, the ruler of the gods. So he's calling Walter a rebel. Walter. To Ruth. Who is Prometheus? Ruth. I don't know. Don't worry about it. Walter. In fury, pointing after George. See there? They get to a point where they can't insult you man to man. They gotta go to talk about something ain't nobody ever heard of. So he's accusing George of insulting him because he doesn't know who Prometheus is. Ruth. How do you know it was an insult? To humor him. Maybe Prometheus is a nice fellow. Walter. Prometheus? I bet there ain't even no such thing. I bet that simple-minded clown. Ruth. Walter. She stops what she is doing and looks at him. Walter, yelling, Don't start! Ruth. Start what? Walter. You're nagging. Where was I? Who was I with? How much money did I spend? Ruth. Plaintively, or sadly. Walter Lee. Why don't we just try to talk about it? Walter. Not listening. I've been out talking with people who understand me, people who care about the things I got on my mind. Ruth, warily. I guess that means people like Willie Harris. Walter. Yes, people like Willie Harris. Ruth, with a sudden flash of impatience. Why don't you all just hurry up and go into the banking business and stop talking about it? Walter. Why? You want to know why? 'Cause we all tied up in a race of people that don't know how to do nothing but moan, pray, and have babies. The line is too bitter even for him, and he looks at her and sits down. So, yeah, he's talking about African American people in general. Like, all African Americans can do is complain, pray that things get better, and then have children. Ruth. Oh, Walter. Softly. Honey, why can't you stop fighting me? Walter, without thinking. Who's fighting you? Who even cares about you? This line begins the retardation of his mood. And it says makes him begin to act calmer, is what the footnote says for that. Ruth. Well, she waits a long time and then with resignation starts to put away her things. I guess I might as well go on to bed. More or less herself. I don't know where we lost it, but we have. Then to him, I'm sorry about this new baby, Walter. I guess maybe I better go on and do what I started. I guess I just didn't realize how bad things was with us. I guess I just didn't really realize. She starts out to the bedroom and stops. You want some hot milk? Walter. Hot milk? Ruth. Yes, hot milk. Walter. Why hot milk? Ruth. 'Cause after all that liquor you come home with, you ought to have something hot in your stomach. Walter. I don't want no milk. Ruth. You want some coffee then? Walter. No, I don't want coffee. I don't want nothing hot to drink. Almost plaintively. Why are you always trying to give me something to eat? And Ruth is saying, like, where we lost it, like, I don't know, when we stopped understanding each other. And then she keeps trying to offer him food. And Walter never seems to want any of the food. Like, at the beginning of the play, she's saying, hey, Walter, eat your eggs. And he's like, why do you keep telling me to eat my eggs? And you won't listen to me. Okay. Ruth, standing and looking at him helplessly. What else can I give you, Walter Lee Younger? She stands and looks at him and presently turns to go out again. He lifts his head and watches her go away from him in a new mood, which began to emerge when he asked her, Who cares about you? Walter. It's been rough, ain't it, baby? She hears and stops, but does not turn around, and he continues to her back. I guess between two people, there ain't never as much understood as folks generally think there is. I mean, like, between me and you. She turns to face him. How he gets to the place where we scared to talk softness to each other. So he's saying our relationship has suffered, like, two people in relationships, they're often not always understood. And then when did we stop treating each other with respect and kindness? He waits, thinking hard on himself. Why you think it gotta be like that? He is thoughtful, almost as a child would be. Ruth. What is it gets into people ought to be close? And Walter saying, what changes people who should just love each other? Why can't we just love each other? Ruth. I don't know, honey. I think about it a lot. Walter. On account of you and me, you mean? The way things are with us. The way something done come down between us. And Walter saying something's changed between us. Something's happened. Ruth. There ain't so much between us, Walter. Not when you come to me and try to talk to me. Try to be with me. A little even. Walter. Total honesty. Sometimes, I don't even know how to try. Ruth. Walter? Walter. Yes? Ruth. Coming to him, gently and with misgiving, but coming to him. Honey, life don't have to be like this. I mean, sometimes people can do things so that things are better. You remember how we used to talk when Travis was born about the way we were going to live, the kind of house? She's stroking his head. Well, it's all starting to slip away from us. And with this, she means the American dream. Like the white picket fence, to have the family and a house where Travis gets his own bed, where they have enough money. Ruth is saying that dream, she's beginning to think it's not something that they can have. It's not something that they're going to get. He turns her to him, and they look at each other and kiss tenderly and hungrily. The door opens, and Mama enters. Walter breaks away and jumps up, a beat. Walter. Mama, where have you been? Mama. Them steps is longer than they used to be. Woo. She sits down and ignores him. So she's saying that the walk is harder. The stairs are harder than they used to be. How are you feeling this evening, Ruth? Ruth shrugs, disturbed at having been interrupted and watching her husband knowingly. Walter. Mama, where have you been all day? Mama. Still ignoring him and leaning on the table and changing to more comfortable shoes. Where's Travis? Ruth. I let him go out earlier and he ain't come back yet. Boy, is he going to get it. He's going to be punished. Walter. Mama. Mama, as if she has heard him for the first time. Yes, son? Walter. Where did you go this afternoon? Mama. I went downtown to tend to some business that I had to tend to. That's real specific, Mama. So I'm curious what you all think she had to go do. Walter. What kind of business? Mama. You know better than to question me like a child, brother. Walter. Rising and bending over the table. Where were you, Mama? Bringing his fists down and shouting. Mama. You didn't go do something with that insurance money. Something crazy? The front door opens slowly, interrupting him, and Travis peeks his head in, less than hopefully. Travis, to his mother. Mama, Ruth. Mama, nothing. You're going to get it, boy. Get on into that bedroom and get yourself ready. Travis. But Mama, why don't you all never let that child explain himself? Ruth. Keep out of it now, Lena. Mama clamps her lips together and Ruth advances towards her son menacingly. So really angrily, she comes towards her son. Ruth. 1,000 times I have told you not to go off like that. Mama, holding out her arms to her grandson. Well, at least let me tell him something. I want him to be the first one to hear. Come here, Travis. The boy obeys gladly. Travis. She takes him by the shoulder and looks into his face. You know that money we got in the mail this morning? Travis. Yes'm. Mama. Well, what you think your grandmama gone and done with that money? Travis. I don't know, Grandmama. Mama, putting her finger on his nose for emphasis. She went out and she bought you a house. The explosion comes from Walter at the end of the revelation, and he jumps up and turns away from all of them in a fury. Mama continues to Travis. So Walter hits the table. He's really upset that Mama went and spent the money that he wanted to use for the liquor store. You glad about the house? It's going to be yours when you get to be a man. Travis. Yeah, I always wanted to live in a house. Mama. All right, give me some sugar then. Travis puts his arms around her neck as she watches her son over the boy's shoulder. Then, to Travis, after the embrace. Now when you say your prayers tonight, you thank God and your grandfather, 'cause it was him who gave you the house, in his way. And in his way means because of the money when he died. Which is, in his way, is actually kind of a nice way to say that without acknowledging, without talking about the death. Ruth, taking the boy from Mama and pushing him towards the bedroom. Now you get out of here and get ready for your beating. Travis, oh, Mama. Ruth, get on in there, closing the door behind him and turning radiantly to her mother-in-law. So you went and did it. Mama, quietly, looking at her son with pain. Yes, I did. Ruth, raising both arms classically. Praise God. Looks at Walter a moment, who says nothing. She crosses rapidly to her husband. Please, honey, let me be glad. You be glad too. She has laid her hands on his shoulders, but he shakes himself free of her roughly without turning to face her. Oh, Walter, a home, a home. She comes back to Mama. Well, where is it? How big is it? How much is it going to cost? And so Walter's really upset. He is angry. He wanted to invest the money in the liquor store. He feels like no one believes in him, but Ruth is really excited. And Mama and Travis are excited too. Because Travis is going to get a room. He doesn't have to sleep on the couch anymore. Mama, well, Ruth, when we moving? Mama, smiling at her. 1st of the month. Ruth, throwing back her head with jubilance. Praise God. Mama, tentatively, still looking at her son's back turned against her and Ruth. It's a nice house, too. She cannot help speaking directly to him. An imploring quality in her voice, her manner, makes her almost like a girl now. So she wants to get Walter's approval. She's trying, through the way she's talking and her voice, she's trying to make get Walter to stop being angry and to get him to see that this is the best thing for the family. 3 bedrooms. Nice big one for you and Ruth. Me and Beneatha still have to share our room, but Travis have one of his own. And with difficulty, I figure if the new baby is a boy, we get one of them double-decker outfits. And there's a yard with a little patch of dirt where I can maybe get to grow me a few flowers and a nice basement. And double-decker outfits, that's a bunk bed. Ruth, Walter, honey, be glad. Mama, still to his back, fingering things on the table. Of course, I don't want to make it sound fancier than it is. It's just a plain little old house, but it's made good and solid, and it will be ours. Walter Lee, it makes a difference in a man when he can walk on floors that belong to him. Ruth, where is it? Mama, frightened and at this telling. Well, it's out there in Clybourne Park. Ruth's radiance fades abruptly, and Walter finally turns slowly to face his mother with incredulity incredulity and hostility. So it's amazement and anger. Ruth, where? Mama, matter-of-factly. 406 Clybourne Street, Clybourne Park. Ruth, Clybourne Park? Mama, there ain't no colored people living in Clybourne Park. Meaning there's no black people there. It's all white people, and that's it there. Mama, almost idiotically. Well, I guess there's going to be some now. Walter, bitterly. So that's the peace and comfort you went out and bought for us today? Mama, raising her eyes to meet his finally. Son, I just tried to find the nicest place for the least amount of money for my family. Ruth, trying to recover from the shock. Well, of course I ain't one never been afraid of no crackers, mind you, but wasn't there no other houses nowhere? So, Ruth is saying she's never been afraid of white people, and it's pretty clear that everyone would have preferred to live in a neighborhood with predominantly black people, but that's not what happened. The cheapest house was in a neighborhood full of white people for what they needed. Mama, them houses they put up for colored in them areas way out all seem to cost twice as much as other houses. I did the best I could. Ruth, struck senseless with the news and its various degrees of goodness and trouble, she sits a moment, her fists propping her chin in thought, and then she starts to rise, bringing her fist down with vigor, the radiance spreading from cheek to cheek again. Well, all I can say is, if this is my time in life, my time to say goodbye, and she builds with momentum as she starts to circle the room with an exuberant, almost tearfully happy release. To these goddamn cracked walls, she pounds the walls, and these marching roaches, she wipes an imaginary army of marching roaches, and this cramped little closet, which ain't now or never was no kitchen, then I say it loud and good, Alleluia, and goodbye misery, I don't never want to see your ugly face again. She laughs joyously, having practically destroyed the apartment, and flings her arms up and lets them come down happily, slowly, reflectively, over her abdomen, aware for the first time perhaps that the life therein pulses with happiness and not despair. So she's really happy that there's going to be a house, and she's not afraid to have the baby anymore because she knows there's going to be space for the baby. Mama, moved, watching her happiness. Yes, honey? Ruth, looking off. Is there a whole lot of sunlight? Mama, understanding. Yes, child, there's a whole lot of sunlight. Long pause. Ruth, collecting herself and going to the door of the room Travis is in. Well, I guess I better see about Travis. To Mama. Lord, I sure don't feel like whipping nobody today. She exits. Okay, I think that's where I'm going to stop. We're on page 109 in my book. I'm going to post the page numbers in the text box. But yeah, everyone is really surprised and happy that Mama got this house, maybe with the exception of Walter. But they're going to move and they're going to have enough space. And it's not the exact American dream that Mama initially wanted. Like, she and Beneatha still have to share a room, and it came later than she expected, but they're getting a house. And so some dreams are being realized, which is really exciting for the family. Okay, so I'm going to leave you here. I'll see y'all later.